Welcome to another episode of Discourse. On this one, we're going to be ranking and reviewing every Bring Me the Horizon. My good friend and co-host Kyle, also joining us this episode, really an expert on the genre. Please welcome known internet metalcore expert. We got Metalbirb on the program. Burb, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
Good, man. I don't know if I really like the term metalcore expert. Sure, I'll take it.
It's been bestowed upon you, so now I guess it's a burden you have to carry throughout this episode.
All right, fair enough, man. But no, I'm doing well. It's currently 9 p.m. It's the only time that we could do this podcast, but I'm down. I'm like 2 coffees deep already, so let's go.
It. Fans of the show will know that I did coffee on the last episode. That was also a late night, and that was, I think, a mistake for me. It got a little chirpy in that episode, so I am off coffee tonight. Nothing this time, just a nice cold Dr. Pepper.
Chirpy? Do you get aggressive with coffee?
I don't think it was the coffee that made me aggressive necessarily. It made me energetic, and then Kyle's picks made me chirpy.
Oh, okay, fair enough. All right.
He also threatened to kill my wife, so that
whoa!
Yeah, you might need a break from caffeine if you're doing that.
I genuinely don't remember that. So
that was a lie. That was a bold-faced lie.
Here's the problem. I believed it could have happened. And that, I think, is indicative of a much greater problem.
that would be a real issue if you did threaten to kill my... All right, anyways.
This is an audio podcast, so I can't see your faces, so I can't tell when you're joking or not.
Just assume that most things in this podcast are jokes.
Real.
Okay, cool.
We are joking. We're having a good old time. Kyle, just not to breeze over you too quick. How are you doing?
Good. Glad you learned from last episode. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave you hanging again.
I am wound up.
This is a good episode to be wound up for. I am so excited to go through this discography because there is so much variance, so much room for opinion. And I think all three of us are probably going to have pretty big opinions on it.
Yeah. It's a tough one, man. Like it's like all over the place, to be honest. Like
it is.
Some days I might feel this album a little bit more than the next one. So this is just how I'm currently feeling at the moment.
And here's the thing. They're all kind of really good in their own way. And I'm not going to spoil too much right now. They're all kind of really good. And so that really adds to the variance and I think the discussion that we're going to have tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all good.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I genuinely, there's maybe one album that isn't, and it's probably not the one people are thinking of right now. And that's all I'll say. Fair enough.
We're not ranking the whole songs of sleep and dance and bang to or whatever that album is. Like that one's an easy F for number 9 or whatever for me.
Yeah. We'll just bang it out right now. Songs to dance to, discourse to, podcast to is our honorary number 9 spot, but we are not talking about it tonight. We're also not talking about the EP. This is what the edge of your seat was made for. Is that what it's called? We're not talking about it, so it doesn't really matter.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, Burb, thank you for being here. We do appreciate it a lot. And for anyone who may be unfamiliar with you, who you are, what you do, could you just give us a brief introduction as to who you are, what you do, and all that?
I basically watch music videos for a living. It's the weirdest job.
Sounds amazing.
But the way to sum it up is I guess I'm a reactor, but I still try to do, I'm basically like a YouTuber. I've gotten the comments or like people saying like, oh, you're a TikToker. I'm like, please don't ever call me that. No, like I'm a YouTuber where like, I do reaction videos to a lot of the core scene. I primarily focus on metalcore, deathcore, post-hardcore, a lot of the core stuff. But I'm also like really into like prog metal. I'm also like into other genres too. Like the odd time I might incorporate some jazz, like some snarky puppy on my channel, but generally I do keep the channel pretty metal for my audience. But yeah, I guess you would call me a music reactor.
Yeah. So I guess kind of in the realm of being a metal reactor. And I feel like a lot of, kind of people in the internet space who talk about music can maybe relate to this. I know it's certainly something that I think about a lot, but like we all kind of love to share the cool young bands we're finding, right? But the reality of that is often like that's not what gets people engaging with your channel or your page or anything like that. So how do you feel like, or what do you feel like is the balance between, posting for channel survival, growth of the page, and sharing the cool young bands you found? And have you found any strategies that make posting those smaller bands actually a bit more successful on your page?
Oh, I love that question because you obviously understand, because
Yeah.
that's probably one of the biggest challenges that, I face and other people in my like reaction community face. Because to keep the channel afloat, yeah, you got to do the spirit boxes, the sleep tokens, the bad omens, which I genuinely love all those bands. But if I want to feature the small underground bands that have like less than 10,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, you got to resort to, I still do videos for them, but you really got to put on your marketing hat and try to figure out the title, the thumbnail. And this is where stuff can get a little bit clickbaity, because sometimes like I don't even put the band and song name in the title and people get pissed like, oh, why don't you put the band name or song name in the title? It's because, well, you don't click. And if I title my video like, this is the sickest song of the year, this is the heaviest breakdown of the year, and if I actually believe or mean what I say, then it's not clickbait to me, because that's actually how I feel. So, when I do titles like that and really focus on the thumbnail, then that's where I can shed out the small bands. But to be honest, I think the whole new wave of TikTok and like the shorter content where it's like 60 seconds, I think is really good to propel the smaller bands, because people are just scrolling on their phones, doom scrolling. And then all of a sudden first 2 seconds, you hear this really cool like scream or something. And then boom, you're hooked in and you can shed out the smaller bands that way much easier on a TikTok or a YouTube short.
Yeah, I found that to be true as well. We obviously don't do like reaction videos on YouTube, but like sharing a moment from a song on Twitter and posting about it. Like if you just put like, oh, this new album from so and so just came out, check it out. Like nobody engages with that. If you post the breakdown of the song and say something like, oh my gosh, this is the heaviest breakdown of the year, that's going to get the engagement and people are going to share it and engage with it. It's like, I don't love that style of captioning, but I've really had to come to the point where it's like, you know what? I just need to get over that and I need to play the game, because that's how it works. You can't circumvent playing the game, especially if you want to share all these awesome small bands that are on the come up.
Yep, I totally hate it, man. I hate doing the titles and thumbnails the way that it is, but I'm just playing the game. I wish I could just title my video like reaction video number 504 and people will just click on it, right? But that's not how it works. You have to be like, oh my God, this breakdown is fucking or can I swear?
Yeah,
Okay.
swear all you want.
Okay, this is fucking disgusting. Like you have to, and then yeah, people will click on it. But the thing is, like I was mentioning, is that if I stand by the statements, like if the breakdown actually to me is disgusting, and then it's not clickbait. So that way I don't feel shitty about my titles and the way that I'm trying to market the bands.
Yeah, for sure. I struggle with that so much. It's just, like I said, playing the game. But in that same kind of vein, are there any smaller bands that you've been following for a while that have started to find kind of success and you've seen grow in that way? Or I guess also, are there any bands that are on the come up right now or are small that you are so excited to see start to get more engagement and more following and more listeners?
Man, I have a laundry list of bands I can mention. I'm just trying to narrow it down. But one example of how that clickbaity marketing works was for the band Breakaway. It's a song that I heard on Twitch and it only had like 30 views when we listened to it on Twitch.
Wow.
And then when I checked it out, it was sound kind of like Sleep Token-y, and then it had like this nice female vocalist on it. It just sounded like a cool song. And I'm just like, imagine if we just get like this breakdown. And then all of a sudden, right after we got the breakdown, and I'm like, oh my God, this is just the female Sleep Token. So then I titled my videos The Female Sleep Token, and boom, it blew up. I did that on TikTok, 1.3 million views. So now the band only having 30 views from their debut single, 30 views in 2 weeks, by the way. And then now they're at like 140,000 monthly listeners on Spotify now. So that's like the power of like the title and all that stuff and helping these smaller bands. But that's a cool band breakaway. But another band, I think your audience, like if it's metalcore community that we're really talking to, Via Nova, they dropped a song.
I was just about to bring them up.
Yeah, dude, like that song Melanchthonic came out last week, I'm pretty sure. And it's just like the music video is like an old Mustang and they're just driving at night. And the whole song just had this cool synthy, like breakdowny kind of like moody song. It's just perfect for a night drive. You don't really put metalcore alongside with night drive music, but this song is that. That's a really cool song.
They're so sick.
Yeah, they're sweet. Mirar, that band is really changing the Thal game right now. Let me see if I can throw just one more curveball here. There's this band that I absolutely really like. They're more on the post rock, post metal side of things, but they're called Black Shape. They only have one album, and I'm pretty sure it's produced by the same guy who's produced like Under Oath Records. But yeah, they had this one song. They're basically an instrumental band. So it's 12 tracks of pretty much instrumentals, except for one song. They introduce the vocals and it's just so beautiful. And the music video is just like, looks like a Black Mirror episode. It's just really, it's like a 6-minute weird post rock song that just gets super emotional, but it's like one of the best songs I've ever heard on my channel. But they're incredibly underrated. They're called Black Shape, but yeah, I just want to shout those guys out.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out because that sounds extremely interesting.
I don't know the song name. I do. It's just so hard to pronounce. Just type in Black Shape on YouTube. Like literally, the song name is ITIIITIATIH, and it keeps on going.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, I can see the struggle there for sure.
Yeah.
I guess I'll also shout out a couple because there are some that come to mind on my end about smaller bands that I love. I've been so in love and just enamored with the new wave of post-hardcore that's coming up. Our buddies over in Pulses with Sales Ahead, like those guys are awesome. But another band or another two bands in that kind of realm, there's a band called Dwellings. I think we talked about them in one of our earlier end of the year episodes. They are so incredible, so much talent, insane vocals. Like they are so sick.
The song Red, right?
Yes.
That song's awesome.
They're so sick. That entire album is unreal.
Yeah, and they're on tour with the home team and
they
Dance.
And, and a band that shall not be mentioned.
Oh yeah.
And then another band I'll shout out quickly is a band called Cat Company. They are awesome. They are so sick. And that whole sound and that new wave of bands in that kind of realm is just so fun and so energetic. And I just love it so much. That's what has my heart right now. So I feel like most of the small bands that I know are kind of in that arena. But yeah, Kyle, do you have any you want to shout out? Putting you on the spot. Enjoy this, buddy.
Yeah, I enjoy. I don't know if it's just one guy or a band, but called Ketchup. Really enjoyed their EP in 2024. And then Modern Day Machines. I know I mentioned them on the end of year episode. Post-hardcore band. Was very impressed with their debut EP. Came out last year. So off the dome, those are the two that are very small that you probably have not heard of that I've been enjoying.
Yeah, I don't know those ones.
I love it, man. I just love sharing new music that is good. And if it's a small band, like seeing them go is so much fun. I wish them all the best. Kyle, I'm going to pass it over to you now if you have any questions.
Yeah, Burb, the main one is just why Bring Me the Horizon? Like what about them has shaped, I guess, your music taste, and why are they the band you'd like to discuss?
Well, originally I asked for Architects, but I think you had a guest that already did Architects, right?
Yeah, we had done Architects actually before we started having guests on.
Yeah, we did Architects
Oh.
a long time ago, which to be fair, I could do a whole other episode on Architects because I love Architects, but
Yeah, like I'm an Architect super fan, man. But I'm also like a Bring Me Horizon super fan. And the reason why I chose them was I'm just trying to think like bands that have like a huge amount of discography that you guys haven't tackled yet. I noticed that you did Under Oath with Garrett Russell, and I love Under Oath. So I'm like, so I was just kind of like narrowing it down. I'm like, have you done Bring Me Horizon? And yeah, Nathan said like no. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do Bring Me Horizon then. So I was just kind of like narrowing it down the choices.
An episode I've been waiting for, to be honest.
Hell yeah, yeah. I'm stoked. This is a big one.
A huge one.
Yeah.
And I guess, it would be a great transition point if I didn't have to plug the social media real quick. So if you want to join the discourse, you can find us on Twitter at discog_pod, TikTok at discog_discourse, Instagram at discog.discourse. And we also have a Patreon for anyone interested in supporting the show, where you get bonus episodes. You'll be able to vote on what bands we cover when we don't have guests. And as you'll hear later, our second tier donors can read off their rankings on the show and we will react to them. Also, if you could be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on, that would help us out a lot. And as always, we have a couple shout outs we want to do. We'll do these quickly. This first one, these are obviously from our Circa Survive episode with Sierra from With Sales Ahead. This is from Violet at Fatal Deluxe. They said, 2 Dreams, get behind me. And that is because we absolutely slandered that album.
for good reason.
Hey. We're not going to rehash old discussions.
We literally do it every single episode. What are you talking about?
But we don't need to. This next one is from Apex Redditor at Big City Big Smoo. They said, respectfully, woof to whoever picked the Amulet over Blue Sky Noise. Kyle, I believe that was... No, you had Blue Sky Noise at number 1, didn't you? That was Sierra. Sorry, Sierra. And lastly, this one's from Kier at Trading's Doses. They said, how are all 3 of these people so wrong? Burb, that'll give you a good feel for what you're in for. I have to imagine we're going to get a lot of how are all 3 of these people so wrongs on this episode.
I purposely just want to put everything that would make Twitter mad. Just to spite them.
You know what? I'll appreciate that when we put that post up, because that'll get the people riled up.
Yeah, just bait them. But I want to know, where did you guys put Juturna for Circa Survive?
That was my number 2. That was behind On Letting Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was my number 4.
Ooh.
Oh, it might have been my number 3.
Ooh. Yeah, it's Sierra's number 2, your number 3, my number 4.
I might have to agree with these people.
Yeah, because I had Blue Sky Noise above it.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Blue Sky Noise is awesome.
It's so good. And one of the things that was really interesting about that conversation, here we go, rehashing old conversations. I had never listened to Circa Survive at really any depth before doing that episode. So it was all blank slate for me. So I was like, you know what? I have no idea what people think of these albums. I don't know. I have like no level of bias except for my own thoughts. And that was a fun one.
That's sick. Yeah, Circa Survive. They're like legends of the post-hardcore scene.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. It was just one of those blind spots in my music catalog, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I have tons of those.
Yeah. And we'll dive into this in a second, but Burb, where can people find you on social media?
Type in Metalbirb. You'll find me. Yeah, like one word. Burb, not bird. It's a cheesy name. I'm a cheesy guy. Except Twitter. Twitter is like my handle on Twitter is Metalbirb1 because some jerk had to take the Metalbirb handle. Yeah, so I'm Metalbirb1 on Twitter, but everywhere else it's Metalbirb.
That is absolutely tragic.
I know.
Sorry. All right. I think the time has come. We got to cut the dilly-dallying. It's time to get to brass tacks and get to business. Burb, you're going to lead this discussion for us. You're going to reveal your list one at a time, least favorite to favorite. And as you do so, Kyle and I will go ahead and reveal where those albums are on our lists. and we'll just have a great cohesive discussion about it. I'm sure it will be very cool, calm, and collected. No major disagreements because we're all going to be on the same page. So with that said, Burb, what is your least favorite Bring Me the Horizon album?
Oh, the pressure is on, man. But
yeah, the pressure's on. It's game time.
So okay, there's 8 albums: Count Your Blessings, Suicide Season, There's a Hell, Sempiternal, That's the Spirit Ammo, Post-Human Survival Horror, and Next Gen. This one's easy as hell for me. Sorry to all the deathcore junkies over there, but Count Your Blessings is last. Now it's going to be last because it's their debut album, but like it's just kind of generic deathcore. They do it pretty well, but Bring the Horizon is usually a band that's like, I don't know, 1 or 2 steps ahead from everybody else in terms of like sonically. Count Your Blessings is just more of that regurgitated MySpace deathcore sound. So yeah, easy number 8 for me.
I agree, and also the vocals in that album are my least favorite type of screaming vocals. So I echo everything plus the annoying factor on that album for me personally is a little too high.
Man, Burb, I love that you preface that like, oh, this might be a little controversial. You know, I gotta apologize to all the deathcore fans out there. Look, we all agree here. This is a safe space to put Count Your Blessings at 8. I've made it known on Twitter that this is not the best Bring Me the Horizon album. I think I've even said it's the worst. And, you know, someone wise told me recently, make your words small so that if you ever have to eat them, they go down a little easier. And I do have to eat my words a little bit here because while it's not, I mean, even close to my favorite Bring Me the Horizon album, there are some fun moments on here. Like I found myself having like a decent time, but you're absolutely right. Like it's kind of generic, especially for the time that it came out. Deathcore. Bring Me the Horizon is at their best when, like you said, they're 2 steps ahead. But you can obviously see the potential on here, right? Like the drumming's pretty insane on here. You get a lot of those like classic Avenged Sevenfold Unholy Confession style riffs, obviously turned up to 11, so you get the deathcore version of that. But Kyle, I also agree with you. The vocals totally derail any sense of enjoyment I was getting from the instrumentation on this album. And I think that's the biggest thing that holds it back. That and it's kind of one note. Like a lot of the best Bring Me the Horizon albums have variance in sound. You know, they do a little slower track, but this really doesn't. And it's kind of the same all the way through, in my humble opinion.
Oh, totally. When you hear the stuff live, though, oh man, the stuff from Count Your Blessings is sick live because they sprinkle it in with all the other genres that they do. But in terms of like the album, yeah, it's super one note. It's on the generic side of things. And also, you were talking about this is safe space, and like if I annoy people with these controversial opinions, oh, I don't care. I don't care. Like, let's go. Like, yeah, the deathcore community is really attached to Count Your Blessings. They really abide by that record. I'm like, I don't know, man. I think that's nostalgia. It's very. They do it well. Don't get me wrong. They do it well, but it's outdated. And again, it's generic.
It is hard to believe that Ollie Sykes is the vocalist on this album. Just knowing his range and his strengths. Again, the vocals are annoying. But it is impressive, and it's impressive just to see his range, especially early on. So I do want to give the flowers where they're deserved.
Yeah. Well, and not only it's crazy that this is Ollie Sykes, it's crazy that this is Bring Me the Horizon. Like, I know people always joke about like, oh, if the Ammo fans heard Count Your Blessings at a show, they would explode or whatever. But like, it's kind of insane that this is the same band. Like there's so much variance.
That's my favorite thing about the record is just like, I can't believe they actually wrote deathcore, but I'm not going to like listen to it much, but I just love like just the novel factor that like, this is the same band that wrote Ammo. Like it's so cool.
Yeah, no, and I'll even go so far as to say like the first 3 tracks on here are pretty good. Like you have to get past kind of the amateur vocals and all of that. And, the production's not great either, but, that's kind of to be expected with a debut. But those first 3 tracks as songs are pretty sick. Pray for Plagues, Tell Slater, Braille. Like, those are the songs that I do come back to from this album. Medusa, maybe from time to time, but outside of that, it's a little too one note. It's a little too deathcore, I guess, at its core. It's fine. And if the worst album of the 8 albums we're going to talk about is fine, I think we're going to have a pretty good time tonight.
That's it, right? Like, I don't really think any of these albums are like bad per se, except for that one Songs to Sleep To or whatever.
I don't like this album at all. I would even go as far as saying it's not a very good album. I think they have 2 that are bad. And then also the Songs to Sleep To album. I hate that. I hate that album for real. Like, that album actually makes me upset. And it's just because it's bullshit. But that's just me.
Okay. Pause. Time out. It's not bad. Like, it's not bad. Songs to
What
Sleep
isn't
To,
bad?
Songs
Yes,
to
it
Discourse.
is.
It's fine. It's different.
Nathan, what's good about it?
It's interesting. Like, it's interesting that a band like Bring Me the Horizon put that out.
That's fair. But also, I just find it like annoying.
Oh, I think
I'm never going to listen to it, but I will defend it in as far as it's interesting. And so I think it has merit to exist.
Just because something's interesting doesn't mean it's good. Let's get that out of the way. And if it's interesting and you're never going to listen to it again, I'm not going to stretch and say it kind of sucks. A 10-minute opener on a song that is thoroughly uninteresting pisses me off. Guys, we're not here to talk about that crappy album, though. I was thrilled when I learned that we were not covering it. So let's that's
reel it in. You're right. I think that's about all I have on this album. I like the instrumentation. You can see the potential. I don't really understand the attachment that so many people have to it. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. And I think it's just the deathcore kids that are really attached to it.
Yeah. Nostalgia pilled for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got the worst album out of the way. And we're all on the same page.
Albums out of the way.
That's true. If we want to count Songs to Sleep To, Songs to Podcast To, Songs to Discourse To. Burb, what you got that number 7 spot? I'm curious to see how long we can stay on the same page because I don't think it'll be very long.
No, I think this is where it's going to change. I think we can all agree at 8, but I think this is where it gets a little bit more divisive. Because, like, honestly, man, again, like, it's a little bit all over the place because, like, some albums I might enjoy more depending on my mood or whatever, but I'm trying to like debate like subjectively how I feel, but also objectively like what's a good album from like the theme and cohesion and all that stuff. But looking at it, it really pains me to do this, but I think let me just do a double check here.
Now, don't do something silly. Don't do anything.
I think I might have to. I think I might have to put Posthuman Next Gen.
Stop you right now. I'm gonna stop you right now.
Let's go.
I'm gonna stop you right now. I've had a lot of thoughts on this album. And this is the take I was most scared of.
Yeah.
This is the opinion I am the most scared of to talk about on this show. I kind of had this feeling that it was going to be my number 1, but I couldn't come to terms with it. Like, for so long, I was in denial, and I had another album at my number 1. And actually today, I was like, you know what? I have to be true to myself. I have to be true to where I'm at right now and what album I am just still head over heels for. And I have to put this at number 1, and people are going to eat me alive. But I am so enamored with this album still.
Hey, Nathan, tell the people what you've rated it as.
I said I put it at my number 1.
Number 1, I've got a number 4. Herb has it at 7. Sorry, I didn't catch
No,
that.
no, you're good. You're good. It is something that needs to be reiterated. I think it's something that needs to be said because this is kind of an insane take. Bring Me the Horizons, post-human next gen is my favorite Bring Me the Horizon album. And even now, I still like struggle to say that because it doesn't feel like it should be, but it kind of is.
No, man. Like I say, totally own it. Like the thing about that
Yeah.
that's so sick about this band is that they're so diverse that this is going to. Again, this is where I said like I think this is where things are going to get divisive. And yeah, like
You could not have been more right.
yeah, like when I reviewed the album, I think I put it in the 9 range, which is like really fucking high. But the thing is, like, I put this little like citation at the bottom saying like ratings are subject to change because that's just how I initially feel about it. Right now, Post-Human Next Gen's like 8, which is still really high. Like the amount of times I do album reviews and I give 6s, 7s, or 5s, like this is still an 8. Like that's what I mean about Bring Me the Horizon. To me, doesn't really write bad records. So I still enjoy this record. This is why I hurt to put it at 7, but like I think there's a lot of good songs on it. I love Utopia. Utopia is probably my favorite. Yeah, and like Lost is so catchy. Like it's such a good emo record, and it also pushes the emo genre forward. Like it's a sick record. I just also find other albums like they have songs that I enjoy more, but Post-Human Next Gen is still a good album.
Yeah, and I think you kind of keyed in on something there. It feels very forward thinking. And I think for me, this album, I guess, what's the opposite of being nostalgia pilled? Because I think that's what I have with this album.
Recency bias?
Like, yeah. Oh, yeah. The actual like term that people use. Yeah. Not some internet version of it. Recency bias. I think I have that in a bad way on this album because, I think of the classic Bring Me the Horizon albums that are great, that we're going to get into. And I'm like, yeah, they're fantastic. They were obviously, they set the tone when they came out, really. And those albums at the time were forward thinking. But since then, I mean, we've become very familiar with a lot of those sounds. And I think to some extent, that's kind of diluted the impact that those albums have had on me over time. And that is so unfair to those albums because they are excellent. This album there's nothing really like it that scratches the exact itch that it does because you're getting all these different genre influences thrown in there. You're getting big emo anthems like Utopia, which is arguably one of the best Bring Me the Horizon choruses, in my opinion. But then at the same time, on the same album, you have the absolute insanity kind of pale dust coated track that is Amen, which is just nuts and insane. That song's amazing. It's so good. And like speaking of Pale Dusk, I kind of talked about this in my end of the year episode, but I'll repeat it again here because I think this guy deserves the world. Die from Pale Dusk does some production work on this album, and you can hear his influence all over it.
I was about to say, if I could bet, I would have bet that this was going to be your number 1 album because it sounds like a more reined in Pale Dusk. And I'm glad I nailed that. I'm glad I nailed that thought.
Nailed it right on the head because, dude, there in a similar vein to there's not a lot of albums that sound like this. The only thing that I can think of that comes close is Pale Dusk. And that's probably because of the common denominator there. Obviously, they're a much more chaotic version of this, but like there's not a lot of bands that scratch that really chaos, electronically driven, riff heavy, nasty breakdown itches that band especially, and then this album to some extent do. And I mean, you pair his songwriting style and his chaos and that unique sound with a band like Bring Me the Horizon, who obviously has the tools to write anthems and massive tracks, and it's just like kind of a match made in heaven for me. It's like the perfect storm of things that I love coming together on this unique for the time album. And I think I said this again in the end of the year episode, like this does kind of feel like the start of a next generation of post-hardcore, metalcore, or whatever you want to call it. A lot of bands are going to take influence from this. I am so enamored with this. Every song has a moment that is just like mind-blowing in some capacity. whether it be a crazy breakdown, an insane hook. Like every song has one standout moment that just kind of puts your jaw on the floor. It's just kind of unbelievable how good this album is and how much it grew on me to the point where it is now my favorite Bring Me the Horizon album. It's the one I go back to the most.
You're making me rethink and want to put it as number 6. just like one above. But like, you're not wrong about how there's a lot of good songs on it and the influence. Like From First to Last wrote a song recently called Genesis, and it sounds totally like the next gen. But I think the hyper pop and the production, the glitchy sounds, and it's just a little too over the top for my palate. I think that's a reason why it's also at number 7. But everything that you said about why you liked it is like totally just and fair. Like it is it's such a good record because of all those things you mentioned.
Yeah, I love the over-the-top nature of it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think the thing that appeals to it for me, I have it 4, and my top 4 albums, I really love every single one, is that it is unpredictable, like a Pale Dusk, and it does feel like you don't really know what's around the corner. Even when it's your 10th time through listening, there is still that kind of nature of wild card unpredictability that a techno punk Pale Dusk influence will always bring. And I think they did it. I think they did it excellently. So I echo Nathan mostly. Usually I like to disagree with you, Nathan, but you nailed it here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's so good. And like, we'll kind of compare it a little more to the other Post-Human, I'm sure. But I remember a lot of people saying that this felt kind of derivative following that. Like, they did a lot of these ideas better on the other Post-Human album, Survival Horror.
Disagree.
And I don't get that idea at all. I think they're so different and so unique in and of themselves. And we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, this album just puts my jaw on the floor. Bring Me the Horizon is at their best when they are forward thinking.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe. I disagree, but that'll come later.
Whoa.
I think you can really always say that with like this album and maybe one other. So
you know what? Looking back from where we are now, maybe, but I think at the time a lot of these albums were kind of on the precipice of the cutting edge of the genre that they were representing.
Maybe so. I can't speak to that because I was like 10.
Yeah, no, they kind of were. Like I first started listening to them back in Suicide Season, and people love them too. But I don't know if they were like at the cutting edge, but like they had just like a huge fan base, primarily actually girls. And they actually had a bad reputation because of like, only girls like Bring Me the Horizon because they're like
they were one of the quote, it's not a phase band,
the pretty boy bands or whatever. Yeah, but I think it was like There's a Hell is when they started to get a little bit more inventive with the scene that they're in.
For sure. All right. Well, I think I've monologued about this album for long enough.
Yeah, time for number 6?
Time for number 6. My goodness.
All right. So number 6 for me, I was a little bit 6 or 7 can honestly switch spots. That's why after you selling me on Next Gen, I'm like, yeah, it's probably 6. But it's actually, this is going to be another hot take. So let's go Twitter people. Post-Human Survival Horror is at 6. There could be nostalgia playing to a lot of the albums I listen to because, again, I've been listening to them since Suicide Season. But like Survival Horror, like it's got some good songs like Dear Diary is a fucking banger. They're all like good songs. I think other songs maybe just hit a more emotional highs for me. Where this song is just more about like upbeat bangers with like breakdowns. It's just like a modern Linkin Park. So it's a really sick like record because of it. I just connect with other albums more because maybe they're a little bit more emotional or a little bit more diverse. Because again, this one does just feel like the modern Linkin Park album.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say that obviously we hear influence of Next Gen, or not influence of Next Gen, but we hear the
foundation being laid.
Yeah, exactly. The sort of chaotic nature, and it's very refreshing to see a band like Bring Me the Horizon lean into the weird and lean into the unpredictable, as opposed to leaning back into that sort of drony, generic rock, just going for a big song or two to get on the radio. And that's what I appreciate about Next Gen. I think survival horror has great moments, like you were saying, Burb, but it feels like there's a real commercial aspect that I dislike, and I really dislike, dare I say, hate the baby metal verse. That makes me turn the album off just about every time.
Whoa.
I like it, but yeah,
I like it too. That's kind of a hot take.
Oh, it was 2 of the time. I hate it.
I like
it's pretty like overbearing, so I understand.
It is the identity of that song is the baby metal feature. It feels like they kind of built it around the idea of, oh, what if we got baby metal on this verse? And then actually the chorus really, and built a song around that. But I kind of like it. I think it's cool.
Really? I hate it.
Yeah.
I think it's such a gimmick, but
it's so catchy.
Metal. I think baby metal is a gimmick. It's interesting what they did, but that's not a hot take.
Yeah, it's not that hot. Like to the baby metal fans, it really is. But
yeah,
I think a lot of people understand what you mean by that.
It's the definition of a gimmick. Sorry, this isn't about baby metal. I apologize. I'll get off my stool.
Yeah. This is about halfway up my list. This is at my 4th spot. And you know, I'll kick it off with this. Bring Me the Horizon is at their best when they're forward thinking. This album does not feel super forward thinking to me. And that's kind of the difference between Next Gen and survival horror, in my opinion. You know, I was just talking about how people said Next Gen felt derivative. I feel like these feel like almost opposite albums, where Next Gen is looking into the future and pushing the genre forward and like, what could this sound like? This kind of feels like Bring Me the Horizon looking back at a lot of their influences and the bands that inspired them and kind of bringing that into a more modern version of that sound. And you bringing up Linkin Park, I feel like that is spot on. Like there's some Linkin Park influence on here. Some of these riffs just ooze early 2000s hard rock. And it sounds like I'm really coming after this album negatively. I think it was really good, actually. They do that sound very well in a lot of ways on here. And I cannot help but remember how exciting it was to hear a heavy Bring Me the Horizon track again at this time when it came out, because we're coming off of a couple albums that are not very heavy, for better or for worse. You know, a lot of people are going to have a lot of different opinions on that. But I remember Ludens came out as a single quite a bit before this album to go with the Death Stranding video game.
Oh, yeah.
And that song like piqued my interest again. I was kind of like, yeah, Bring Me the Horizon, you know, once heavy, not heavy anymore. And I actually kind of like their new sound, but it doesn't scratch the same itch. And then Ludens comes out and I'm like, oh, hold on. You know, this is kind of a one-off single, but they have my attention again. I'm interested to see what they're doing because that track is awesome. I love how synth driven it is. The breakdown hits. The chorus is amazing. Like, it's just like a great Bring Me the Horizon song. And then obviously this album comes out and it's awesome. You know, you get songs like Dear Diary, which are just insane with the ferocious riffs, the in-your-face drumming throughout the entire song. The screaming is back. And I honestly never thought we'd hear a track like that from Bring Me the Horizon following where they were before this. And the craziest part about that, I guess, is it's not even my favorite track on here. I think Obey might be the best song on here, which is kind of crazy, but it's kind of similar to Utopia, where it's kind of a big anthemic hook-driven Bring Me the Horizon song, but it's so catchy. It is another one of my favorite choruses from them. Really energetic vocals and verses, and it's just fun all the way through. And to me, that's like a perfect song. It's so good. But yeah, a great album, a lot of fun. I prefer when Bring Me is a little more forward thinking rather than playing with ideas that inspired them and kind of bringing those up to date.
Yeah, they've written so many bangers, man. And the Ludens thing, they were spot on. When they wrote that for Death Stranding, I'm like, oh my God, Ollie's screaming again. it was such a big deal. But now we're kind of
Yeah.
spoiled with him screaming, so I didn't even think about it. But yeah, at the time, it was so cool to see hear Ollie scream.
Oh, it like completely revitalized my deep interest in the band, which is probably a little bit spoilery for where the rest of my list go.
That's what I was thinking.
But I mean, at a certain point, you can't get around it. I love heavier Bring Me the Horizon, or at least Bring Me the Horizon with a little bite to them, a little aggression. Spoilers. It's a good album. And aren't they doing more post-human albums? Isn't that kind of the plan?
I thought Next Gen was supposed to be like an EP, but it ended up being like 16 songs. So like, I don't know. And then Ollie said they might be taking a break. So they planned on doing more post-human. Like one was going to be electronic, but who knows anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember hearing somewhere a while ago that they were thinking about it was like 4 EPs, and that's the post-human series. And then, yeah, obviously, like you said, Next Gen ended up being a full-blown album. I did not know that they may be going on a little break, but that would be pretty disappointing because I think they're on a real high right now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, what can you do? What can you do? It's the way it goes sometimes. Oh, no one mentioned Parasite Eve. Do y'all have any thoughts on that track?
They're all fucking bangers. Like, it's really not a bad album. Like, even putting it at 6, I feel bad, but it could, again, it's probably just like the sound of it, like the production, and also being a little bit too Linkin Parky for like I really do like Linkin Park, but I guess maybe I just like I'm trying not to get too spoilery with my other picks. I just like the other albums more.
You like when Bring Me the Horizon is doing their own thing.
Yeah, or I don't even know, man. I don't even know. Like, I'll get to it when I explain the albums.
I like it. Well, should we take one more step closer to that?
Let's take one more step closer, folks.
One step closer, right. Linkin Park reference.
Yeah.
Oh, Nathan,
it's all in the
conversation. Well, I feel like my number 5 is going to be your number 7. Well, I'm not too sure because it sounds like you don't like the pop stuff like Ammo. But yeah, this album just, it's the one that I first heard. It a lot of the songs just still click with me. It's a little bit outdated, but fuck, like I love the grooves. I love how heavy it is. And how catchy it is. This is a band that always mixes heavy with catchy. That's one of my favorite things about Bring the Horizon is that they always manage to make heavy music catchy. So yeah, Suicide Season is at number 5 for me.
I'm dead.
Chelsea Smile for me is like a fucking banger and a half. Still one of my favorite songs the band has written. Also, The Sadness Will Never End with Sam Carter doing vocals too on it was so good. It's like an emo metalcore banger. Then they did like the remix, and that was the first introduction to Skrillex when he did a remix to The Sadness Will Never End too. So just a cool record. Not all the songs are bangers. Like I would say the post-humans are probably more consistent. Suicide Season just has songs that I fucking love.
You're breaking my heart, Burb.
Nathan at number 2, myself also with Burb in line at number 5.
You're breaking my heart. You thought this was gonna be my number 7?
Oh damn, yeah, I've seen it. Number 2 for you.
Yeah,
number 5 for Kyle.
Yeah, I just love the aggression of this album. You know, obviously it's still a little bit rooted in deathcore, a little bit, but it feels like just enough a step in the right direction towards metalcore that I'm kind of all in on it. Like it's right in that sweet spot of, oh, this is so heavy and you kind of don't know where we're going to go next. There's enough variety throughout the album. It's not as one note as an album like Count Your Blessings. And I think the biggest thing for me on this album is Ollie's transition vocally, because on Count Your Blessings, it's all deathcore all the time. Screaming isn't great. And he still does a little bit of that vocal style, but it's used in moderation. It's like used as an accent piece to his more like yelling primary vocal. And I think that works so well. Like it's so good because it makes those moments heavier and it's so effective. And I also think, just generally speaking, they've improved in their songwriting. the riffs aren't as, Avenged Sevenfold coded. It's a little more traditional choppy breakdown kind of stuff, but it's so good. It's so good. And like you said, The Sadness Will Never End is awesome. That more melodically driven sound is so good, and they're really starting to come into their own with that style. But I think arguably a better version of that is the title track to close the album. It's such a good closing track. It's so melodic. The atmosphere is huge. It's massive. It's incredible. And it's got some heavy moments thrown in there too. And it really does a great job of tying the bow at the end of the album and just brings it all together for me. And then obviously the hits are insane. Chelsea Smile, like you said, Death Breath is pretty crazy. Football Season Is Over is ridiculous.
Football Season Is Over is unbelievable.
It's so good.
The song is so good.
It almost feels off tempo in the faster part of the song, but in the same breath, like, yeah, it should be. That's kind of fitting. Like I rock with it. And then Diamonds Aren't Forever is so good as well.
I find this very interesting about this album. And Burb, you mentioned this earlier, but like it kind of had a bad rap at this time for being sort of a teeny bopper, teenage girl fixation band. And it's so funny listening to this album because I went into this album, and this is no disrespect towards Pierce the Veil, but thinking it would be more in line with a Pierce the Veil. And I love Pierce the Veil, don't get me wrong. But I understand why Pierce the Veil had that title. Like they had that label of being a teeny bopper. Man, I still don't understand why during the Suicide Season days, Bring Me the Horizon also had that same label. This album is filthy. This album is so abrasive and aggressive and everything that kind of that era of emo punk was or emo pop punk was not. It's just interesting to me.
Oh yeah, it's super interesting. Like, yeah, you were talking about or the structures too, Nathan, or something. Like the songs too are kind of like progressive in some way. Like Chelsea Smile, especially being like the single, just has a cool like progression where the song goes. It's pretty unpredictable.
Yeah.
Like growing up with these albums too, it really based my music listening, and that's why I'm super critical of the bands I listen to today. Like a lot of the modern metal where they follow a basic structure. I'm like, man, I was spoiled with bands like Bring Me the Horizon writing these pretty crazy structures back in the day.
Yeah, Chelsea Smile. I could never have predicted, before hearing it, where it would go in that bridge with kind of the strings and the electronic elements. That, to me, really feels like the first time we see glimpses of what's to come with Bring Me the Horizon.
That's a good point.
That really feels like the foundation that they build off of on the next few albums. And you get that little snippet of it in this otherwise just chaotic, filthy, heavy track. And that obviously that section goes back into the breakdown at the very end. It's awesome. It's so good. And it's so interesting to see the ideas that they take from this album and build off of.
It's a little bit under oathy when I think about it, like that electronics when it starts kicking in.
Yeah.
Something like Define the Great Line or They're Only Chasing Safety would do or something.
Yeah, I could totally hear that 100%.
My sleeper favorite part of the album is The Sadness Will Never End into No Need for Introductions, where it is. I mean, like, that's some of the heaviest shit I've ever heard in my life. And
the breakdown in that song is ridiculous.
Oh my god! Well, it's after just like The Sadness Will Never End being a more melodic, like the ending is very gentle. There's so much resolve, and then the No Need for Introductions. They're hitting those blast beats as if their life depended on it. It is, it's just hilarious to me. It's like they're messing around with the whiplash and the different tempo and the pacing of the album, and weirdly enough, like we were talking about the variation they do so well. This album doesn't feel like this album feels like it's well paced in a weird way, even though traditionally I would usually feel like there's going to be a lot of whiplash because of the different paces and kind of different avenues they take. It goes back to that unpredictable nature of this band, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. I love this album.
It feels kind of messy, but I kind of love it for that reason. And like No Need for Introductions is kind of like the perfect example of that. The note that I had for that song was that it's underdeveloped and unnecessary, and I love it for that reason.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
They didn't need to flesh out a full song from that. Like, yeah, let's just do a fast bit and we'll do a breakdown and call it a day. It's like, yeah, that's that kind of youthful spirit that I do love in like this era of heavy music.
Yeah, when bands are like young, like I don't know, like in their early 20s or late, like I don't know, 19 or 18, they're so creative, and you can argue that the music is clunky or not cohesive, but there's a lot of character in that too.
Oh yeah,
And
it feels so free, almost like
yeah,
carefree. It's so carefree. It's like, yeah, you know, this isn't a proper song, but it goes so hard, and I don't care. Like,
yep.
it doesn't need to be a full song. It's so good. I love that stuff.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, let's crack this top four. Now that I only have one song left in the top four.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's wild stuff.
I feel like we enjoy exact opposite things about Bring Me the Horizon. I'm like, yeah, the chaotic, heavy. That's what I'm gravitating towards. Where I think,
like I do, like I agree with all your points, though. That's the thing. Like, still, my number 7 is still like a record that I like. Like, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
they're all good.
Yeah, like
strong discography.
Yeah, it's a strong discography, and it's hard to really rate them based off, like, you know, again, subjective and objective too. Like for my number 4, yeah, this is where it's going to get polarizing, because now this is going to be your number 7, but I is a really good like pop rock record. I know a lot of the core community does not like it, but when they have songs like Nihilist Blues, which this is going to be a really hot take for some people, but I think Nihilist Blues is their best song. That song is a fucking 10 out of 10.
Whoa.
Electronic. Yep. That song. They also apparently, don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure I read off an article. Again, I'm not entirely sure, but it was like based off like a death metal structure. The song is just so fucking perfect with like the transitions, the flows, the lyrics, the vibe and atmosphere. It's so cool, and there's not much else like it. And then they have such a wicked opener with I Apologize If You Feel Something too. Just the sound of it is so, I don't know, there's something cool and electronic that is not the most cookie cutter thing too. And then they do have the fun songs, like Wonderful Life is a fun banger, In the Dark.
So good.
Why You Gotta Kick Me When I'm Down is good, but like it's the more electronic stuff that I really like. Like Fresh Bruises is awesome. Ouch is awesome. Nihilist Blues, I Apologize If You Feel Something. Like their main single mantra is one of my least favorite songs on it. Like to me, it's the electronics here are so good. And it's weird because when they did the songs that you listen to whatever that record where it's all electronic, I'm like, oh, this is just annoying. This is just still like has a nice amount of replayability, amazing hooks, clever lyrics, a lot of variety too. I love a record that has a lot of variety. So yeah, I fucking love Ammo. Like the weird thing is, like half the record I don't really care for. Like Medicine, no. Medicine, Mother Tongue, no. I skip those songs. But the songs I do like, again, Nihilist Blues, fucking 10 out of 10 song for me. I actually made a video where I was saying like, here's 10 out of 10 songs, and yeah, Nihilist Blues I think is a fucking perfect song.
I do really like that song. I think it's good.
I'm glad you feel that way, Burb. I'm really glad you feel that way about this album.
Why? Because it's that. Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. I mean, man, if I had 100 tries, and I know they don't even have this many songs, to guess which song you would call 10 out of 10, put the gun to my head and shoot me, I would have never guessed Nihilist Blues, because I think that song is par for the course on this album, where it does not grab me. I don't find a lot of what they're doing particularly interesting, just because of the approach that they're taking of a little more melodic, electronic, R&B beats and atmosphere in there. And I don't think they do it particularly well. I think they have some interesting songs in here, like Sugar, Honey, Ice, and Tea. They do a solid job of making
great track.
Of making a song that I would probably come back to. But I'm glad that I actually am legitimately glad to hear your perspective on this, because it will probably make me go back to it. Is this is an album that I listened to, wrote off, and sort of moved on, because it's not that interesting to me.
Yeah,
Well,
like
that's
maybe
so interesting.
put it on like a good sound system, like watch that music video or something. Like it's such a cool, moody song. And to me, again, it's not generic. Like it's one of the least popular Bring the Horizon songs too, because I think it's just not the most accessible song. But like for like this weird 90s Euro dancey song, and like it also has like a weird breakdown in the second verse too. It's not your typical breakdown like metal, but it does have this breakdown groove. I don't know. It's such a wicked, weird song to me.
I do really like that track. I think it's actually pretty excellent. I wouldn't say it's a 10 out of 10, but it is like one of the stronger tracks on the album, with like the production on here, as with, the rest of the album, is so good. And that main synth line in this song is so interesting. And I think for me, this album, I remember when it came out, I did not really like it at all. I was very much ingrained in the if it ain't heavy, I do not care all that much, to some extent, because I do like Wonderful Life. I've always kind of had a soft spot for that song because it's pretty fun. And generally speaking, I have always liked alternative rock. But from heavy bands, I want heavy music. And coming back to this, I actually kind of really enjoyed it. And I wanted to put it higher on my list, but I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. I do want to point out, like, yeah, a lot of metalcore fans kind of dunk on this album, and I think a lot of them will see my list. They'll have other questions for sure, but they'll see this and be like, "Oh yeah, I know what kind of person he is. He just likes the heavy music." But I actually think there's so much to this album that is excellent. And in coming back to it, songs like Nihilist Blues really stuck out to me. Songs like Sugar, Honey, Ice, and Tea really stuck out to me. Why You Gotta Kick Me When I'm Down. All of these songs that are kind of more electronically driven than the typical Bring Me the Horizon track, they sound excellent. The production's so good, so crisp. There's so much depth, and it's just so great to listen to. And I think what really makes this album so strong is Ollie's vocals. He sounds phenomenal on here. And by this point in their discography, he's really come into his own as a vocalist. And just thinking about his range with where they were before this, what they've been doing after it, like, it's crazy how much he can do with like the gritty metalcore big choruses that are so anthemic. Where on here, it's very poppy and delicate and bouncy, but still kind of has that power to it. And I was really trying to dissect why this album works for me now as opposed to when it came out. And I think there could be two things, and I haven't decided which one it is, if either, to be honest. It could be the fact that, I've grown as a music enjoyer beyond just give me the heavy. My tastes beyond metalcore have kind of expanded, and I've grown to appreciate more music beyond that. Or the flip side of that coin, almost, it might be the fact that, Bring Me the Horizon is kind of heavy again, and that makes this go down a lot easier than when I thought this would be the only thing they do from this point forward. And so kind of maybe putting, this is Bring Me the Horizon now, putting that aside, there's a lot of cool stuff on here as kind of a blip in their discography, as kind of a moment of fresh air, kind of. It's a really interesting album, and it's really low on my list, but I do really like it and think there's a lot of really good stuff on here.
Yeah, this is going to be my hot take for sure. So you were talking about people on Twitter like judging your list. Like, no, this is where they're going to go. Like, oh, ammo that high, ammo above post-human next gen survival horror.
Yeah,
I'm
true.
sorry, and that's why I'm giving you the hot takes with Nihilist Blues being a 10 out of 10. Like,
I love it.
Yeah, give them the hot takes. Give them something to get angry about, so they can retweet this and give it more publicity.
Because they will.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, no, there's a lot to like on here. So I like, while you think that's a hot take, I think I'm more in line with you than I am with Kyle on this, despite having it in the same spot as Kyle.
All right.
Maybe I just sold you on Nihilist Blues.
I mean,
watch it with like watch it on like a big screen TV with like an insane sound system. That song fucking hits. But I guess that applies to all their music. But I don't know, it's just a cool trip.
Medicine sucks though.
Yeah, medicine sucks.
Medicine blows.
Yeah.
I actually think this album kind of ends on a weak note with
Yeah, it does. You're not wrong. I don't know what to say. Like even the title, like, yeah. I don't know how to finish the album.
No, it's like mother tongue heavy metal, and I don't know what to say. I'm like, yeah. If this closed with "Why You Gotta Kick Me When I'm Down," I might have bumped it up a spot or two.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong about that.
The front half is kind of insane.
Fresh Bruises, though, again, I love the electronic
Not really.
interludes. Fresh Bruises and ouch. Not really.
Not really. Like you're saying the front half is kind of insane, but you've rated this album at 7. I don't think you believe that statement. It's like it's
No,
fine.
I do.
It's like okay.
The front half is kind of insane, and it's the strength of this discography that bumps an album like Hemo down.
Maybe that's true.
Like,
Maybe that's true, but I do not agree that it's insane.
maybe maybe it's insane for the fact that why is Bring Me the Horizon doing this, and why is it kind of good?
No, that is fair, and it then goes back to like you can't set an expectation on an artist. I do disagree with people throttling that artist because they didn't do what they wanted. If what they did sucked and it's not what I wanted, then yeah, I'm going to be annoyed. But if it's something like this that's interesting, that's not going to catch my interest particularly, there's obviously no problem with it because that's what art is about. But
yeah, fully agree. The artist should do whatever they want. It's not, they don't owe me anything. They don't owe me Suicide Season 2.
I also don't owe them like, oh, just because this isn't usually what you do, I'm going to enjoy it. No, if it sucks, like that's on them. And I do not, for the record, think that this sucks.
They're entitled to do what they want creatively, and I'm entitled to talk about it, whether I like it or not. How did we get here? How did we get to this discussion?
I don't know, but if you guys really want to fight, the Canada versus US game is currently 2-2. So,
I'm gonna have to put my dukes up.
Yeah, throwing the gloves off, folks.
Yeah. Ding ding.
Well, should we do number 3?
So here's the thing. Y'all have your top 3 open. Y'all could match out all the way through to the end. I've got my 6, my 5, and my 3. That does
honestly, me and Burb have been we've been pretty in line. Obviously, like Ammo and Next Gen have swapped places on our list. Other than that, we're hand in hand.
And you know what? That is pretty impressive given the discography at hand. I'll give it to you.
It is.
I don't expect that to last.
Well, let's find out.
Let's find out. Like, again, I know Ammo was the hot take, but maybe this is another one because I think this record is awesome, even though it's a little bit more on the polarizing side of things. But this song just has so many fucking bangers, like such good hooks, variety. Again, I love an album with a decent amount of variety. I think this is just an amazing rock record. That's the spirit at song Doomed. True Friends is catchy too. Follow You is like a nice like ballad song. I remember when I heard Drown for the first time, I'm like, oh my god, this is Bring the Horizon. It felt like a little bit under oathy too. Like it was just so wicked catchy, and Ollie just flexing his vocals and improving as a vocalist. Like a lot of these songs has still stuck out with me.
You want to talk about the front half of an album that's insane. The front half of this album is nuts.
I agree with that.
Yes, second half is, you're right. It does lose its steam a little bit towards the second half, but first half is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Burb. I also have it at 3. Nathan has it at 6. It's an interesting choice. We'll let him defend himself against the trial or against the masses. But no, I couldn't agree more. I think the first 4 tracks on this album are fantastic. You can make an argument that these belong in a top 10 list. With the emotion, the variation, the production, Ollie sounds unbelievable. And they're implementing some experimental elements, but this is such a 2015 album. To be completely honest, that's one of my favorite, if not my favorite era of the genre, where there's a nice mix of theatrics. The vocal layering is huge. You have highs and lows and dips in the album in regards to pacing. And I think they do it fantastically on this album, and a mixture of not only really interesting instrumentation, but also unbelievably catchy hooks. I love this record. I really do. That's why I have it number 3.
Yeah, it's so good.
Jokes aside, like I said a minute ago, the front half of this album is insane. Like Doomed, Happy Song, Throne, True Friends, kind of the best of the best when it comes to, radio ready metalcore tracks. Tracks that can have that mass appeal while also just being like great atmospheric rock tracks. So good, so interesting production wise, so catchy. Like it doesn't get better than that in that arena of the genre. For me, what keeps this low, there's two things. Two things that keep this towards the bottom of my list. First, the second half of the album is okay. It's fine. It's nothing to write home about. What really keeps this album down on my list may not be fair to the album, but it is the irreparable damage that it did to the genre of metalcore. Because you can really oh
it
buddy,
did, yeah.
This album destroyed the genre for a little bit. And I think we're kind of coming out of it now. But it feels like every band heard this album and thought, oh, that's the formula. That's the key to getting big in metalcore. You need to write, that's the spirit. And the problem is, the big problem with that is a lot of metalcore bands do not have the songwriting ability that Bring Me the Horizon does, which is incredibly harsh. But I know you're a big Architects fan. Architects is guilty of going down the path of trying to replicate That's the Spirit with their album For Those That Wish to Exist. And when we ranked Architects, I actually defended that album and still do to this day, because Architects fans clown on it, saying it's terrible. It's the Bring Me the Horizonification of Architects. But I think it's a pretty good version of it. It's one of the better versions of an attempt at Bring Me the Horizon sound that I've heard. It's a shame that Architects, though, a band that has kind of driven their own sound and, carved out their own unique space in the genre, started chasing another band's sound, but I think they do it pretty dang well. That's kind of the only example I can think of a band doing it all right. Maybe Under Oath. Under Oath also did it pretty well too.
Yep.
But Wage War, Bullet for My Valentine, I
think the word live too, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
Like you can honestly just kind of go down the list, and it's like, yeah, most metalcore bands have at least attempted to write a song that sounds like That's the Spirit. And usually, and especially now, since we've heard it so many times, I'm just so tired of it. I'm so tired of it, man. I'm just tired. And it's interesting to see some of these bands kind of come back with heavier material now, whether they want to or not. Architects. Sorry, I don't mean to dog on your favorite band like that.
Architects being like, it's funny because they sounded very Bring Me with For Those That Wish to Exist, but then Bring Me actually sounded very Architects with their early albums.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's always kind of like, both bands have been kind of like on like a weird similar path. It's kind of interesting.
They're intertwined at this point.
Yeah.
So that may be an unfair criticism to this album, but I cannot forgive it for the sins it has committed to the genre that I love. And that said, obviously, like I said a minute ago, there are tracks on here that are excellent. It just, for me, every album I have above it on my list has higher highs in terms of the songs that I love. Like the peaks of the albums I have above this are higher. And there are a couple above it, that have the same problem with the weak back half. And even to a certain extent, the way they influence the genre. But I just think the back half of this one is weak. the highs aren't quite as high.
Like, it is an interesting point because you're not wrong, but like, just looking at their catalog, I don't know, man. Like, Happy Song has that awesome like groove. I think they were inspired by Rage Against the Machine when writing it too.
Yeah.
Throne is very Linkin Parky. Doomed is kind of emo-y. True Friends is that emo post-hardcore track. Like, and you said the second half is not that good. Like, Drown, come on, Drown is fucking
okay.
awesome.
Drown is pretty good. Drown is pretty good, but like, what you need. Follow You.
Yeah.
Avalanche.
Yeah. Avalanche is all right. Wait. No, wait. No, hold up. What You Need? I actually really like that song. I think that's a super underrated song in their catalog, actually.
I agree, Burb. I love What You Need.
Yeah, it's a good song. People never talk about it, but I'm like, it's like a rock song. It sounds like something you hear in like a Need for Speed game or something.
Yeah, it sounds like a Royal Blood song, Nathan.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I enjoy that. I enjoy that about it.
Okay. Well, I just, Burb, I was kind of chuckling because you were listing all the songs that I love as your defense for the album, like Doomed, Happy Song, Throne, and True Friends. Like, those tracks are excellent. And I don't want that to be lost in this conversation. And I don't want it to be lost on the fact that it's so low on my list. Those songs stay in the rotation. Like, they are phenomenal rock tracks. It's everything else on here that I'm kind of like, yeah, no, man. I prefer something with a little more bite.
You know what I'm kind of seeing is that I feel like a lot of their albums, at least to me, I feel like half the songs are awesome, and then the other half, the songs on the albums are just like pretty good. Like,
you know what? I agree. There are quite a few Bring Me the Horizon albums. And I noticed this trend to go a step further where the front half is insane and the back half is like, it's solid. But all the best songs are crammed at the front, which is smart because they're more likely to be heard if someone's just listening to the album.
I agree for the most part on their albums, but my favorite one, I do not feel like has that problem.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, my 1 and 2, which have already been revealed, I don't think have that problem. But it is a trend I noticed on more than a couple of their albums.
Yeah. I think I know what your number 1 is, Kyle.
Excellent.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we move on to number 2?
Yep. Y'all two can have your little party with your same albums in the same spot. And I'll just hang out back here.
I feel great about making it this far and being here today. But yeah, it's just an honor to be hand in hand with Burb this far into the list.
America and Canada have never been so united than this moment.
It's true.
Right here.
Yeah. We're still 2-2 right now, actually.
We are still 2-2.
Third period.
I'm kind of sweating it. We'll see.
I know. Well, this is where, gloves off could be happening pretty soon. But yeah, number 2 for me, which my number 1 will be revealed too. But this is where the albums to me get a little bit more objective in terms of like a strong theme throughout the record, like a very more cohesive package. And then this is the record where I feel like Bring Me the Horizon were kind of changing the game a little bit. Like, this is when they were starting to get a few steps ahead. And it's funny because you were talking about That's the Spirit was influencing Architects. I feel like this record was influenced by Architects. It's got such good songs, great features. It's such an interesting mood and vibe to it. But my number 2 goes to There's a Hell.
You're right. This album is so Architects coded. 100%. Yeah,
apparently, like, I remember back in the day when I was first hearing it, people were like accusing Ollie of sounding like, or borrowing Sam's screaming style.
That's silly. Whoa, I
love this album.
Kyle, I love this album. 1.
Oh,
wow,
man.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I love it so much is the Architects feel. I mean, the insane run that Architects went on in the mid 2010s, where I don't care if Ollie is copying Sam, because it sounds awesome and Sam sounds awesome. And I think they nail it in pretty much every way on this album. It almost feels like a Suicide Season, or excuse me, just a more polished Suicide Season.
Yep.
Where it is still just brains to the wall. We're going as hard as we can. And the production's better. I think the vocals sound better. I think they're doing a lot more interesting things instrumentally, like Blessed with a Curse, the guitar solo, where it's a roaring electric guitar into kind of a real soft, undistorted guitar. And like it's a part of the same guitar solo is lovely. I think that's fantastic. Then it's going into a song with Josh Scogin, Shout Out 68, to end the album, which was fantastic. Alligator Blood is awesome. It just feels like it's a more charged up, polished Suicide Season, which I love. I also think that the F Word song is their best song, so whatever that's worth. But
what?
I love this album. Oh yeah, dude.
You did not just say that.
Yeah, fuck. That song is so good.
that song is really good. I was obsessed with it when like I first heard the album, but that ending with Josh, corny. so corny.
Yes.
No way. I love that song. That ending is amazing.
Then I love that song Into Don't Go with the lights feature and sort of the more melodic, again, really interesting. They just take a turn that you wouldn't expect, and it works so well. But yeah, bro, that song is the F Word song is so good, and I'm calling it the F Word song just so I don't say fuck a bunch of times. But
yeah, well, that certainly didn't stop them. Yeah. Okay, look, instrumentally, that song goes hard, but it's so juvenile and kind of eye roll inducing, like. And that's the point. Sure.
Yeah.
I will also give it credit. Never could have predicted the way that song evolves. Like, not seeing that coming whatsoever. Their best song. You said it's their best song.
It's probably the song I enjoy most from a sonic perspective. You'd like me to say it in a different way?
Not even a top 3 song on this album.
It's a great song. I love it. And I love the pairing, Don't Go. I like the light features. I don't even know who Lights are, but they do a great job.
Oh, you don't know who Lights are? Yeah, I guess she's more Canadian. Like, well, she is Canadian, but yeah, she's awesome. Crucify Me, so good.
Crucify Me is so awesome. Good. Anthem is so good. I mean, I have no gripes with this album. And it goes back to what I was saying about Suicide Season, where you don't know what's behind that next door. You can kind of guess, but they'll take a sharp turn like Don't Go, like Blessed with a Curse. And then back into what you'd expect with Alligator Blood, with Anthem, with The Fox and the Wolf. And it's a very cohesive, very pleasing album to me. And I'm very thankful that I got to listen to this album and enjoy it the last month.
It's funny that you mentioned like the tracks of like what you've come to expect from them, like the Alligator Blood and the Anthem, because those are kind of like far and away my favorite songs on here. And I think that might be the Suicide Season truther in me. Like the songs that kind of sound like Suicide Season, yeah, buddy, I'm all in. Like Alligator Blood might be their best song up to this point in their discography. It's so good.
This is why
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say this is why ranking them is so interesting, because everyone just has different songs and albums that they enjoy. Like my favorite song off that record is It Never Ends. I fucking love that song.
So good. Yeah, and it's just like, and it's kind of that point that makes me look at my list and be like, how can I even justify these decisions? Like, how can Suicide Season be so high when the album that is objectively the most similar to it is like 3 spots lower
and more well produced?
It's just like there are things that I cannot rationalize in my brain, but I'm like, yeah, no, I like this album more. And I think for me, actually, let me try to rationalize here a little bit. I love the unpredictable nature of Suicide Season. I think this album is a bit more predictable in terms of it feels a little more in line with standard metalcore. And, Suicide Season is pretty standard deathcore to some extent, but I think it's just that one tick heavier that gets me I lean forward in my seat when Suicide Season comes on because of that one notch heavier. And that's not to say this album is bad by any means. I've been saying it this whole time. All of these albums are pretty great, and there are great songs on here. I think for me, just that tiny step towards like more melodic focus, which they do well on another album, the album we haven't talked about yet. Just here, this album I don't think it's aged particularly well compared to other Bring Me the Horizon albums, which apparently is a hot take, but I definitely expected this to be higher on my list than when I came back to it. I was kind of like, yeah, it didn't really move the needle one way or another for me. It's all good, but it's not like, wow, that was amazing, I guess you probably don't.
Yeah, I don't, especially because it's like, I think this album aged fantastically, and I don't exactly agree with you, especially when you have Suicide Season at 2 and this at 5.
I know.
Listen, man. I'm trying to follow your logic, and it's
Suicide
hard.
Season is just a smidge heavier, and that's the difference.
It's aged 4 spots better, 3 spots better. I'm just trying to, Nathan. I'm trying to understand your logic. Me and Burb are on the same level. We understand each other at this point, and we're just trying to stoop to your level to make this a little bit more interesting.
No, I appreciate that. Well, let me say this. I love how raw Suicide Season is. I love how chaotic it is. This doesn't have quite as much of that. It doesn't feel as raw. It doesn't feel as carefree. It doesn't feel as chaotic. And, those are the things that I love about Suicide Season. This very good generic metalcore.
I hear you. I don't know about the word generic, though.
Generic is
okay. Understanding that generic in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's just a descriptor that is to say it sounds like a lot of other metalcore. And that may be a perspective thing. That may be a looking back. Of course, there's a lot of metalcore that has sounded like this since There Is a Hell. But nonetheless, there's a lot of metalcore that sounds like There Is a Hell. And I think I'm just a little bit numb to it, which is not fair to There Is a Hell. And it is a good album. There are just other Bring Me the Horizon albums that are better. And when we're comparing Bring Me the Horizon albums, it's just got to be down here.
You had me in the first half when you were saying that Suicide Season is less or like more chaotic, more raw. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. And then you're like, There's a Hell's just more generic, or it's just generic.
Sure.
Like, oh, all right, hold up.
Hold on.
I find like, in terms of generic, what I think of is like maybe the metalcore cliches, which is like a typical breakdown or like a call out or like a typical structure that you hear 1,000 times. I don't really get that with There Is a Hell. I feel like the songs are quite diverse. Maybe some of the grooves and riffs get a little bit generic sounding. But like, to me, that's one of my favorite aspects about this record is that it does feel a little bit more metalcore-y, I guess. But like, it also, the electronic sounds, the features that it has too, kind of breaks it apart a lot more. And one of my favorite aspects, like I mentioned before, is Bring Me the Horizon mixing heavy with catchy. Other bands weren't doing it as well as them. And like, yeah, It Never Ends is my favorite song because it's so wicked catchy, yet still heavy too. So I don't know. I don't really find it a generic record. You
know what? That's fair. I will concede that point. Generic's the wrong word. That's harsh. It doesn't have a lot of these songs for some reason or another. And maybe it's not that it's generic. It's that the album itself is a little repetitive. That also sounds harsh. There are just songs on here that don't have a lasting impact on me. I will keep talking. I'll just keep digging this hole. I'll just keep digging this hole deeper and deeper.
Saying the wrong thing.
There are songs on here that just don't have an impact on me. Don't Go. More like Don't Listen again.
All right, folks. That was a good
joke. Home Sweet Hole. More like let me keep digging this hole.
All right.
Blacklist. More like put this song on a blacklist so I don't have to hear it again.
All right.
These jokes that it never ends.
Joke is
That's a
now
good
joke
song.
is a pretty generous term, but
Yeah.
you had a good joke. That was funny. Anyways,
Yeah.
I
let's
mean,
move on.
like I look at these songs and some of these guitar riffs sound really similar to me. Like there is not a lot of variety in the guitar riffs. Now, what they do on top of those guitar riffs, whether it be the song structure or the electronic elements, they bring in a little more variety. But the core of these songs all kind of sound okay, not all. A lot of kind of sound the same. Nope, not
Yeah.
biting on that one either. Okay.
Well, I kind of hear you on that one. From the riffs, maybe the guitar tones too can sound kind of the same too.
Mhm.
But to me, that's also like the cohesiveness to it.
For sure. Look, at the end of the day, there's just something about this album that as time has gone on for me, it's just not one that I come back to a lot. I think Suicide Season is a much more exciting and engaging version of metalcore, deathcore leaning, Bring Me the Horizon than this album. And I think this take is going to get me eaten alive. So I'm going to stop talking before I say something else that is offensive.
Don't worry, I put Ammo as number 4, so I'm going to get some heat too.
It's okay. I mean, to cancel that right back out, I put Next Gen at number 1. So I'm gonna be so curious to see how this goes when we post this episode. I love it. I love it so much, dude. I love the chaos.
Well, should we do number 1 now, since it's obvious?
I guess.
Words, but they're like more impactful. Like maybe I should keep my review to Sempiternal like this. Like it's the perfect blend of heavy and catchy. It's them being 2 steps ahead. You were talking about That's the Spirit, like changing the game where everyone's copying that record. I feel like Sempiternal is also that record too.
For sure.
I feel like this is another cohesive record start to finish. It's like the biggest game changer album in their catalog, but it also has the most replayable songs for me. Like I feel like most of the albums that we listen to, like half the songs are awesome, half the songs maybe not as much. I feel like Sempiternal has like, most of the record I fucking love. So that's another reason. But yeah, this is just like the revolutionary album in their catalog. It still doesn't sound outdated to me. Like it still hits today. Like it's like 12 years old, still sounds fucking great. Yeah, this is like the game changer album. I know it's kind of this is like a generic number 1 actually, because everyone talks about Sempiternal, but you know what? I think it's the most deserving number 1. It was such a pivotal moment in their career and for metalcore too. Yeah, and Shadow Moses, like one of the most popular metalcore songs, it's so fucking good today. I'll never get bored of that song. Yeah. So Sempiternal number 1.
Would you say this is like an obvious first ballot metalcore Hall of Fame album?
Yeah, this is definitely up there as like one of the best metalcore records of all time.
Yeah, I think so. Even though it's my number 3 and I have some gripes with it, none of them are like major. There's actually another one of those albums where I think the back half is kind of weak, but there are like easy metalcore Hall of Fame tracks on here, like Shadow Moses, like Empire, like Can You Feel My Heart? Like, just all such perfect examples of the evolution.
Can You Feel the Hearts in the It's in the pantheon.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Scene music and it kicks off a really cool feeling of urgency in this album where it feels like they have a lot to say and a lot of music to give. And I don't know, the pace of the album, it feels important.
Yeah,
the whole
everything
album
feels so intentional.
Yeah.
And I love how they slow things down too, like Go to Hell for Heaven's Sake and the Snakes start to sing. Like those songs where Ollie starts to sing in that softer register too. Is like it was refreshing when you're like listening to Bring Me the Horizon over the years and hearing his new vocals. And still today, like they're like more emo, nice, chill songs that Bring Me the Horizon doesn't really write anymore. Like I don't know, it's an album with variety and dynamics too.
Oh, and a ton of it. And like, you know, you have, like you're saying, just the variety. And really on this album is like the true introduction of huge atmospheric Bring Me the Horizon, where the songs they're building here are just so massive. There's so much depth to them. You get the soaring synth kind of pads that build out these soundscapes and the guitar leads that complement them so perfectly. But at the base of it all, like the foundation is like in and of itself just a solid metalcore track. And it's so good and it's so engaging. Shadow Moses is kind of like the Bring Me the Horizon song for obvious reasons, in my opinion. It's so good. It's so efficient. It takes kind of like simple building block metalcore ideas and kind of perfects them, in my opinion. Like if aliens came to Earth and were like, what's metalcore? I'd be like, this. This is metalcore. Like Shadow Moses.
Yeah. Yeah.
All you need to know is right here. Like this is chapter 1. It's perfect metalcore.
Also, I'm a nerd, and that's a reference to the Metal Gear Solid games. Even like the music beforehand is a sample from Metal Gear Solid, so I fucking love it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Metal Gear Solid was made by Hideo Kojima, and that's why he made Death Stranding. So that's where the
Ludens connection.
Yeah, the Ludens connection. Yeah.
I see that. Yeah, he does talk about them quite a bit. But yeah, like you're saying, the variety on here is so good.
And I wonder, you I guess have to wonder after we've talked about all these albums, and for the most part, we've had great things to say about everyone, at least in one way or another. It's interesting to see a band like this, and all 4 of their core members, their bassist, drummer, guitarist, and vocalist, were together from the beginning. Like they've had such little turnover, and I wonder if that's a part of where their consistency comes from, where these guys just know how to make music together, and they obviously have connection and synergy where they're making albums like this. And they're making albums like That's the Spirit, and they're I mean, if you really think about it, Suicide Season to That's the Spirit is an insane 4-album stretch, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure.
And and kind of that consistency in the band members and in the creative process, writing process, them being on the same page. I don't know. I just thought of that looking at their Wikipedia, and that they've got their 4 core members have been there since the beginning.
And I mean, truthfully, to expand on that, like Suicide Season through Post-Human Next Gen is kind of an insane run. And obviously, like people have thoughts on Ammo. It's still a good album. Like they haven't really missed since Count Your Blessings, which is
no, that's
crazy.
not true. That's not true. Music to listen and podcasts and whatever too. That's a miss. I don't know why we keep on acting like that didn't happen.
Dude, there's a
definitely happened, and there's a reason why we're not talking about it.
And the reason is it's not like a Bring Me the Horizon canon. It's like a side quest album.
It's still like over an hour long. It's still over an hour of content that they didn't need to do. All right, that's on me. My bad. I'll step down.
I feel like listening to it again to see if I still hate it or not.
I listened to it last week, and I hated it.
Whatever, you're just a hater.
What, you like that album?
I didn't say that.
We already talked about this. I'm picking a fight. My bad.
To channel some hater energy, this is my number 3. And the reason for that is much like That's the Spirit and Ammo after it. The back half of this album is a noticeable step down from the front half. And Suicide Season just doesn't have that. Next Gen doesn't really have that problem. This is the reason why it got bumped down to the 3rd spot, because I absolutely adore the first 6 tracks on here. Can You Feel My Heart through Shadow Moses? After that, I think they kind of slow it down a little bit. And I think
Crooked Young is an insane song.
Man, the Snakes Start to Sing. I really like that one too.
Yeah, Join the Club is great.
I was about to get to Crooked Young. That is the one bright spot on the back half for me. And the Snakes Start to Sing is fine. Doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Join the club.
That's fair.
Kind of good background noise metalcore. People are gonna crucify me for that one. I just the back half of this album, you know, even if it's good, it's still a step down from the front half, which is just on another plane of existence in terms of metalcore music.
Join the Club is not background music. I just would like to say that. I like that song.
I think that I have successfully sucked all the air out of this conversation by hating on a Hall of Fame metalcore album.
Burb, can you put a bow on this? We can't leave this taste in our mouth with this album.
So, look, put a bow on it. I think we should let the Canada versus USA game decide. It's still 2-2, and whatever country wins. If Canada wins, that means I'm right, and then if USA wins, Kyle's right.
Wait, whoa! What's the third option?
Yeah, I need a third option. Good move. That's a great move, Burp. I think that's a good compromise. Damn it!
Hold on. What if it ends in a tie?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
I don't care because Canada's going to win.
I honestly think so too. I didn't know Nate McKinnon was from Canada. Now I'm kind of on Canada's side because I love that dude. Go Avs.
There you go.
All right.
Well, sorry. Go for it, Nathan.
I was just gonna say before this turns into a hockey podcast, Burb, could you run through your list from your 8 to your 1 spot?
All right. Let's go. 8, Count Your Blessings. 7, Posthuman Next Gen. 6, Posthuman Survival Horror. 5, Suicide Season. 4, Ammo. 3, That's the Spirit. 2, There Is a Hell. Number 1, Sempiternal, baby.
Perfect. Now we got one more thing, and this is for our beloved patrons. We have 2 patrons on our second tier, and that means that they know what band we're talking about ahead of time, and they have the opportunity to send in their rankings for these albums, and we're gonna have a quick little chat about it. And so this first one is from Derek. He's been a patron for quite a while now.
Shout out Derek. He's the man.
Shout out Derek. He's a day one over there.
Dude's the best.
I'm so excited to hear these. So, without further ado, here is Derek's Bring Me the Horizon ranking.
From worst to best. Ammo, Posthuman Next Gen, Posthuman Survival Horror, even though it's this low, Kingslayer, top 10 song. Count Your Blessings, There Is a Hell, Suicide Season, Sempiternal, and the best Bring Me the Horizon album, That's the Spirit. Cheers, boys.
Oh.
Whoa. Okay. I love this. That felt so different from all of our lists.
Yeah, definitely your list too. For sure, your list, Nathan.
Oh, no. Ammo being last and That's the Spirit being first is like wild. It's so interesting. I love that. I did feel a little hurt when I heard Next Gen at that number 7 spot, though. That hurt.
Shout out, Derek.
Kyle, how did you feel about that Kingslayer shout out?
Felt good about it.
Oh, yeah? I thought you said that was lame. I thought you said the song was lame.
Hey, I'm always going to take Derek's side, bro. Don't. This guy's the best, all right?
I love it. Thank you, Derek. This next one comes from Seth, and let's see how crazy this one gets on us.
These are my top 8 Bring Me the Horizon albums. At number 8, Count Your Blessings. Number 7, That's the Spirit. Number 6, Posthuman Survival Horror. Number 5, Suicide Season. Number 4, There's a Hell. Number 3, Ammo. Number 2, Next Gen. And at number 1, Sempiternal.
Man, you couldn't see it, but I was chomping at the bit for that. I was just waiting for Next Gen because I was like, oh, we're getting pretty close.
He feels like Ammo too. That's a cool list.
Good. I appreciate the Ammo love.
Yeah. That feels like the best of our list, Burb, combining the things that we love into one solid consensus list right there.
Yeah, kind of, man. Yeah.
Yeah, shout
Yeah,
out to you,
kind of,
Seth.
dude. Yeah, shout out to Seth and also Burp.
Seth.
Don't forget, our lists are pretty much the same. So don't let Nathan take you away from that.
Shut up,
They
Kyle.
are a little similar, yeah.
Kyle, stop trying to take credit when Seth is the one who brought peace between America and Canada. Burb, thank you so much for joining us for this. This was a great time.
Of course, man. Like, thanks for having me. This was sick. I'm glad that I was able to rank Bring Me the Horizon out of all bands, like arguably like the biggest band in the scene. So stoked about that.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we will see y'all on the next one.